from the fire, from silence and scars. No one remembered, but I never forgot who we are. The streets wrote my name in ashes and blood, but I walked through the void and I drowned in the flood. This far, no further, I won't fall in line. They can break my body, but not my mind. I am not hope, I am not fate. I am the line they'll never break. Not chosen, not created, born in fire. Defiance, defiance. This far, no further, I won't fall in line. They can break my body, bring me my now. I am not hope, I am not fate. I am the light they'll never break, never break, never break.
Defiance, a Mass Effect original story audiobook, written by A.S.R. Hawas, produced by NerdWannaBeProductions, inspired by the Mass Effect universe, created by BioWare. This is a fan-made, non-commercial work intended as a tribute, about the narrator. Well, some of you might recognize my voice. If you do, you already know how this story ends. Loud, bloody, and legendary. If you don't, doesn't matter. For this tale, I'm the narrator of this damn masterpiece. Prologue. By the mid-22nd century, humanity had reached the stars. The discovery of Prothean ruins on Mars in 2148 unlocked technologies that changed everything. Faster than light travel. Mass relays. Element Zero. Within a decade, Earth had joined a greater galactic community, a tapestry of ancient civilizations, new alliances, and fragile peace. The Systems Alliance became humanity's official representative among the stars, holding a seat at the Citadel Council, and holding its breath. Because to the galaxy, humanity was still young, still reckless, still unproven. But while ambassadors shook hands in orbit, back on Earth, things looked very different. The wealth of new technology did not reach everyone. Old cities crumbled beneath the glow of new skylines. Poverty was still poverty, just surrounded by better weapons. Gangs thrived where order collapsed, and old turf wars gained new tools. In the slums of Vancouver's Lower East, two names carved their way into the streets. The 10th Street Reds, a ruthless syndicate with deep black market ties, known for slave trades and off-world smuggling. And the Scarlets, a smaller, desperate gang, surviving through stolen tech, patched-up biotics, and backroom deals. The Scarlets weren't trying to rule. They were just trying to eat, to survive, to scrape by in a city that had already forgotten them. So, this is where Jane Shepard's story begins. In a city, in a galaxy, that had already given up on her before she even knew who she was. But sometimes, the ones the galaxy forgets are the ones who end up saving it. Chapter 1. The Waiting Room. She was born without ceremony. No cries of joy. No warm arms waiting. Just a cold room in a clinic near Vancouver's Lower East Edge, and a mother, too, strung out on red sand to remember giving birth. Her name, Jane, was given by a nurse. Her surname, Shepard, scribbled on a worn datapad for the system to sort later. That was the start. A name. No parents. No home. No promises. Just a ticket punched for St. Anthony's Orphanage, a structure that hadn't seen a maintenance drone in a decade. Cracked plastisteel floors, walls with hollow projectors stuck on the same outdated Alliance anthem or children's program from decades ago. The place reeked of disinfectant, burned-out capacitors, and the faint ozone smell of dying circuitry. Hollow ad flickering. Alliance, your future, our fight. Glitch, glitch, silence. She learned quickly. The galaxy didn't care if you were cold. It didn't hear if you cried. So she stopped crying. Stopped asking. Stopped waiting. Children's voices echoing in the distance. A broken food dispenser beeps uselessly. She was 6 when she met Mark. He was 12. Maybe older. Short for his age. Buzz-cut. With tired eyes and a sickly cough that never quite went away. Mark wasn't a biotic. He was a survivor of exposure. When he was barely 8 months old, a starship, an Element Zero mining freighter, went critical in orbit over Nanaimo, a city just across the channel from Vancouver. The containment systems failed. A shockwave of dark dust rained over the region. Hundreds of children were exposed to Element Zero fallout. Some manifested biotic abilities. Most didn't. Mark didn't get powers. He got sick. A slow, steady illness that would never really leave him. It took his parents in days. Left him in the care of state shelters. Too fragile for adoption. Too strong to die outright. He wore patched clothes and moved like someone who didn't want to be seen. He also smiled like someone who didn't care if you saw him anyway. Mark, grinning. You've got that look, kid, like you're always looking for trouble. Jane, blunt. Maybe I am. Mark. Good, you'll need that. This place chews up the ones who don't keep their eyes and ears open. He didn't talk much, but when he did, he spoke in truths, unpolished, raw, unafraid. He never told her what it was like, his illness. She never asked. He slipped extra rations under her bunk when he could. Let her sit beside him in silence, without needing to fill it. He didn't try to fix her. That made her cautious, because it made her care. One night, she crept toward the staff wing. Curiosity, not fear, had brought her. A hallway, hum of broken climate controls, caretakers arguing near a storage door. She hid beside a defunct sanitation droid, wires poking out like ribs, and listened. Caretaker 1, anxious whisper. The Scarlets are asking for another drop. Tonight. If we don't clear the north wing again, they'll take the deal somewhere else. And there goes our stims, our water filters. Caretaker 2, low, bitter. Let them. What choice do we have? They stash gear, we keep the lights on. Half these kids haven't had clean protein in weeks. Caretaker 1. If the Reds catch wind of this. Caretaker 2. Cutting in, sharper. If the Reds catch wind, we're corpses. But if we cut the Scarlets off now, we're already dead. You want to tell the kids there's no meds next cycle? No filters? No heat? Caretaker 2. Tense. Barely containing it. If we don't play nice, they'll vanish, and we'll be scraping frost off the bedsheets again. Half these kids won't last a week without antibiotics. Caretaker 1. Strained. This place was supposed to be protected. It was funded. We had status. Caretaker 2. Spits the name. Victor Manswell. Shaking head. Put up his big donation plaque 10 years ago, then pulled funding when he got stars in his eyes. His mission to Alpha Centauri left us twisting in the wind. Caretaker 1. Resentful. We're not even on the Alliance's books anymore. No status, no oversight. Just a broken husk of a shelter sitting between gang lines. Caretaker 2. Cold, weary. The Alliance doesn't fund private orphanages. We're not profitable enough to make us worth buying out. We're not political enough to be a headline. Caretaker 1. Quiet. Haunted. If we lose this place, where do the kids go? Caretaker 2. Staring off. They don't go anywhere. They disappear. Later that night, Mark caught her watching the basement door. Mark, quietly, don't bother trying to play hero. They've been running stuff through the sublevels for months. Jane, and no one stops them. Mark, shrug. They give us blankets, protein paste, even fixed the med bay last winter. It's not safety, it's math. It wasn't shelter, it was a deal, and deals came with costs. One night later, when everyone was asleep, wind outside, a sudden sharp thunk of glass, followed by a deep, echoing boom. She remembered the first explosion. The windows blew inward, the lights flickered once, then screams. The 10th Street Reds had come, not to negotiate, to burn. Mark, yelling, "Jane, move!" She ran, through smoke, through fire. Mark held her hand tight, his skin burning hot from proximity. They passed a hollow projector, looping a corrupted lullaby. The hallway was chaos. Mark, strained. Almost there. Almost. Molotov shattering. Whoosh of flame. Cut to roaring fire. She turned. He was standing in fire. And for a second, just one, he wasn't screaming. He just looked at her, eyes wide, not afraid, just confused. Mark, weakly, "Run." She did. She didn't look back. Not then. Not for a long time. Fire. Sirens. Hushed Alliance responders. One kid survived. Jane. She didn't speak to the medics. Didn't answer when the officers asked questions. She just stared at the cracked ceiling of the temporary shelter, while a med drone buzzed over her head, trying and failing to restart a cortisol scan. She whispered to no one. Jane, barely audible. Did no one else make it? Why do I get to survive? Why? It would not be the last time she asked that question. Chapter 2. The Blood on Hastings Street. By 10, Jane Shepard had learned how to vanish. Not disappear, just become unremarkable. She moved through the streets of Vancouver like smoke. Not homeless, not adopted, just drifting. Some nights she slept in the shelter annex near Old Harbor Docks, a rusted grav loader bay repurposed by volunteers. Most nights, she didn't sleep at all. She learned which surveillance cams were still active, which gang tags meant danger, which neighborhoods still traded food for silence. She was already fluent in survival. What she wasn't prepared for was stillness, the kind that came just before the massacre. A quiet city hum, air cars overhead, crackling neon sign. Rain softly begins. She was sitting outside a corner shop on Hastings Street, eating from a heat-sealed nutrient pack she'd warmed with a cracked Omni-tool. The storefront was dark, closed early after a power failure. The street around her buzzed with stray neon. Two Volas tourists argued nearby about missing luggage. A Solarian street preacher shouted something about false peace. And then, everything went quiet. A skidding van. Doors slamming. Silence. Then, gunfire. Bursts. Screams. The 10th Street Reds didn't speak when they hit. They didn't issue threats. Didn't demand anything. They just opened fire. The first victim was a human man, shot twice through the back as he ran toward cover. The second was a Turian woman shielding her son. By the time Jane registered the third, she was already soaked in someone else's blood. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She didn't move. One of the Reds walked right past her, boots splashing in a growing pool of blood. He glanced down. Their eyes met for just a second, and then he kept walking. Sirens far away, rain hitting metal, distant cries. When the gunfire stopped, 18 people were dead, a half-dozen more bleeding out, and Jane, still sitting there, covered in red and gray matter, the nutrient pack still in her lap, untouched, like it had never started. The Alliance police arrived late, too late. They found her exactly where the shooter left her. Officer, unsettled. Ma'am, kid, hey, are you hurt? Jane, flat. No. Officer, you're covered in blood. Do you know what happened? She didn't answer. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't need to. They already knew. She was the only child sitting among corpses, and yet, not a scratch on her. They brought her to a med station for evaluation. The scans showed no injuries. The psych profile pinged trauma markers off the charts. She didn't speak for 3 days. When she did, it was to a night shift nurse, alone in a sterile room lit only by a pulsing blue interface. Jane, quietly, almost curious. Why do I always live? The nurse said nothing. What could she say? The question wasn't rhetorical. It wasn't spiritual. It was just a girl trying to find the pattern in a galaxy that kept burning everything around her. But not her. Some nights, Jane would lie on her cot and press a pillow to her face, not to smother herself, just to remember what pressure felt like, what anything felt like. Because after Hastings, she didn't feel much of anything. That night did something to her. Not like the fire, not like the hunger. It changed the shape of her silence. She stopped trying to understand the galaxy. She just started counting the days she kept waking up. She didn't know it then. But the next time someone died near her, she'd be holding the weapon. Chapter 3. A soldier with nothing to lose. A galaxy that never gave her anything, and the man who finally does. By 17, Jane Shepard had stopped asking why she survived. She just accepted it. The answer never came. She stopped praying, stopped crying. She became a part of the city's background noise, a ghost walking through the shadows of Vancouver's Lower East. Not feared, not known, just endured. She ran solo courier jobs for low-tier gangs, nothing too loud, nothing with a name. She never stayed anywhere longer than a few days. Wore a recycled Omni jacket with an expired thermal seal. Her hair was cropped short by then, her knuckles scarred. She spoke only when necessary, smiled even less. She still dreamed of Mark and the others, the fire, the blood on Hastings. But by now, the dreams weren't screams, just silence. It was a night like that. Rain against a corrugated roof. A distant burst of thunder, lying in abandoned storefronts, when Jane bled again. A job gone sideways. She stepped in to stop a girl from being dragged into an alley. The man pulled a knife. She caught it in the side. She staggered through 3 blocks before collapsing behind a trash compactor, her hand pressed to the wound. Blood ran through her fingers, warm, fast, and she thought, maybe this is it. But fate, as always, said no, not today. Just as Jane was about to accept the sheer amount of fatigue and close her eyes, boots splashing in water, slow, deliberate. Someone crouched beside her. Not a cop, not a ganger, not a medic. A man in an Alliance uniform. Older. Black. Eyes sharp. Jaw set like someone who'd seen enough to stop bluffing. David Anderson. Anderson. Calm. Like checking vitals. You always lie in the rain, or is this just a special occasion? Jane. Dry through pain. You Alliance types always sneak up on dying girls. Anderson. Smirking. Only the interesting ones. He pulled out a sealed Medigel injector, pressed it to her wound. She flinched, but didn't cry out. Anderson. That's a deep cut. Another inch, you'd have nicked the kidney. Jane shrugs. Maybe that would have fixed it. Rain fades slightly. Medigel fizzing softly. She didn't ask who he was, didn't care. But something in the way he looked at her, not like trash, not like a charity case, made her pause. Anderson, lower, serious. You've been bleeding your whole life, haven't you? Jane, still not dead. Anderson, no, but not really living either. He pulled a small hollow chip from his jacket. Pressed it into her hand. Anderson. Recruitment Center. Arcturus branch. This file gets you past the line. Jane. I'm not Alliance material. Anderson. You're not anyone's material. That's why you'll survive it. She looked at the chip, then back at him. Jane. Flat. I don't take orders. Anderson. Smiling faintly. Good. The best soldiers don't at first. He stood. Didn't say goodbye. Just turned and disappeared into the shadows, like he'd been sent by the part of the galaxy that hadn't given up on her yet. 2 days later, quiet buzz of a med station. Shepard's breath, steady now. She walked into an enlistment office, wearing a patched coat. No possessions, no history that mattered. The recruiter raised an eyebrow. Recruiter. You sure about this, miss? Shepard. Do I look unsure? She didn't join the military to be a hero, or for honor, or redemption. She did it for one reason, to see if this time the fire would finally take her. Chapter 4. The Fire in Her Wake. Basic training didn't faze Jane Shepard. She didn't scream during conditioning, didn't flinch during combat drills, didn't fall behind. She kept her mouth shut, eyes forward, always first up, last down. Instructors called her intense. Squad mates called her cold. One medic said she trained like someone who didn't expect to come back. He wasn't wrong. Pain was familiar to her. Structure, too. The Alliance gave her something she'd never had before. A bed, a weapon, and a purpose. She never asked for more. She never needed to. The recruits around her tried to form bonds. Some sought comfort in friendship, in shared struggle. Shepard kept her distance, because she knew how this worked. People who got close to her didn't last. She was deployed young, barely out of training, sent to backwater colonies, escort duty, outposts most officers forgot existed. She didn't complain. She didn't question orders. She just got the job done. And every time a mission went sideways, every time bullets tore through the air, or things started exploding, Shepard stepped into the fire. Sometimes, it seemed like she was daring it to take her. She would charge into situations that should have killed her, should have killed anyone, and walk out bloodied, scorched, limping, but alive. The medics started calling her unkillable. Some whispered it like a compliment, others like a warning. She'd earned scars, deep ones, one just below her ribs, another across her shoulder, a fractured femur that hadn't healed quite right. Every injury left a mark. None of them slowed her down. Then came the first real test. A pirate stronghold on the fringe of Batarian space. She was supposed to provide recon support, observe, report, exfiltrate. But when her unit was pinned down, she disobeyed protocol. Crossed 2 clicks of open terrain under sniper fire. Neutralized 3 hostiles with a sidearm and a blade. She pulled the squad out. 1 wounded man slung over her shoulder. No backup. No extraction window. No hesitation. Just grit and blood and movement. That was the moment the Alliance stopped seeing Jane Shepard as a recruit and started seeing her as a weapon. She was promoted, quietly, shifted to advanced combat training, sent to Arcturus, then back out into the dark. Not many soldiers came out of those programs. Fewer still came out sane. She did both. Her CO at the time wrote, "Shepard doesn't panic, doesn't falter. She calculates risk like she's gambling with someone else's life, but it's always hers." They called it tactical brilliance. She called it what she always did, moving forward. Because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering. It was during these years that her name began circulating through unofficial channels. Whispered between ops teams, quiet nods in dark outposts. The kind of soldier you called when the odds were hopeless. The kind who'd get it done, no matter the cost. And then came the storm. A name she'd never forget. A colony on the edge of nowhere. A place called Elysium. Chapter 5. The Blitz. They called it the Skillian Blitz. A colonial slaughter wrapped in a press release. The human colony of Elysium, just a speck on the galactic map, was hit fast, hard, and without warning. Thousands of Batarian-funded pirates, slavers, and mercs poured in from orbit. No declaration, no demands, just blood. Shepard was there on a routine rotation, part of a ground-side security detail. 24 Alliance troops, 4,000 civilians. When the first wave hit, half the unit was gone in the first 20 minutes. Alarms blaring, gunfire, screams, explosions in the distance. The chain of command fractured. Squads were scattered, officers dead, civilians trapped, and in the chaos, Shepard stepped forward, not because she was ordered to, but because no one else was left. Shepard's voice over radio, calm but commanding. All surviving units, fall back to Sector 9. Stack debris at both ends. We funnel them in and make them bleed. Civilians take priority. Move fast. If they slow you down, carry them. She wasn't a commander. She wasn't even the ranking soldier. But they followed her anyway. Because when everything was burning, Shepard was still thinking, still fighting, and not just for herself. Over the next 9 hours, she led a mobile defense through alleyways and shattered rooftops. She rerouted an orbital comm relay with a scavenged tech pad, turned cargo haulers into barricades, turned fear into a weapon. They started calling her the Ghost in Sector 9, because every time the enemy thought they'd cleared the resistance, Shepard hit them from the side. When they pushed forward, she was already behind them. When they flanked her, they found nothing but corpses and trip mines. Firefight, screams, radio crackle. Trooper over comm. Command, this is Delta Team. We're pinned down. I repeat, pinned down. We need backup. Shepard, cold-focused. I read you, Delta Team. That's a negative. You are the backup. Hold your ground. I'm coming through the North Alley in 60 seconds. Buy me that time. And she did. With 6 bullets, 1 frag, and a pipe she yanked off a dead generator. Shepard's uniform was soaked in blood, none of it hers. By the 6th hour, bodies littered the streets. Elysium's skies burned with orbital wreckage. The pirates kept coming, more confident, more brutal. But every push they made cost them. Every alley they took was lined with mines. Every rooftop, sniper fire. Every fallback point turned into a trap. Shepard was bleeding them dry. Not with superior numbers. She didn't have them. Not with better weapons. Most of hers were scavenged. She beat them with calculation, timing, and refusal. Combat chatter, screams, then silence, heavy breathing, and then it stopped. There was no grand surrender, no final stand, just silence. The slavers stopped advancing, dropped bodies, equipment, and left. Not because they were beaten, but because they realized something. Every step forward would cost more than they could afford. There was no victory left here. Only a red-haired soldier who would not quit, who fought like she wanted to die, but refused to fall. Batarian Field Commander's last comm intercept. Translated. The humans, they're not worth this. Pull back. This one, this Shepard. She'll drag us into hell before we win. She didn't chase them. Didn't taunt. Didn't even move. Just stood in the rubble, her armor scorched, her hands shaking with adrenaline. She watched the dropships leave, one by one. Not victorious. Just alive. Distant rumble of ships exiting atmosphere. Wind through wreckage. Elysium wasn't saved by numbers or strength. It was saved because one soldier made the enemy believe that fighting her wasn't worth the price. The official reports were still being written. The casualty numbers hadn't been finalized, and the fires on Elysium hadn't all gone out. But in orbit above Earth, at the heart of the Systems Alliance Navy, a quiet meeting was already underway. 2 men stood in a dimly lit command chamber on Arcturus Station, watching silent combat footage flicker across a wall of holoscreens. One of them, tall, broad-shouldered, and deliberate in every movement, wore the Admiral's blue and gold with the kind of ease that came from decades of war. Admiral Stephen Hackett, commander of the Fifth Fleet. The kind of man who spoke rarely and meant every word. The other man stood beside him, civilian clothes over a military heart, a decorated officer, tired eyes, steady voice. David Anderson, the man who'd once pulled a bleeding teenager out of an alley in Vancouver, and somehow had known exactly who she was going to become. They were watching her now, Jane Shepard, hollow footage buzzing softly, a pause in playback, distant hum of Alliance CIC, Hackett, low assessing. She held off 2 companies with half a squad, no command structure, and 2 crates of scavenged gear. Anderson. She kept the evac lanes clear, prioritized civilians over everything else. Hackett, watching footage. I've seen Marines with 10 years in crack under less. Anderson. She doesn't crack. She adapts, faster than anyone I've seen. Hackett pauses playback, leans in slightly. She didn't follow standard field doctrine. Anderson, with conviction. She didn't have time for it. She had people to save, and she did. Hackett, beat considering. We send medals to soldiers like that. Anderson shakes his head. She won't care. Hackett. Think she's trouble? Anderson, without hesitation. No, sir. I think she's necessary. Long pause. Quiet as Hackett leans back. Hackett, final judgment. Keep an eye on her. We might need people like that, sooner than we think. For Jane Shepard, Elysium wasn't a turning point. It was just another fight. One more day she dared the galaxy to give her a warrior's death. One more day it failed to oblige. Chapter 6. The Butcher. The operation was codenamed Night Glass. It was supposed to be a clean op, standard assault. 1-week timetable, in and out. Objective: clear a fortified Batarian slaver base on the moon Torfan. Hostiles: heavily armed, unknown biotic presence. Allied forces: 3 fire teams, 27 Marines. Commanding officer: Major Kyle. Decorated, well-liked. A career officer with experience. Shepard's unit was inserted via drop shuttle to the lower trench line. The plan: breach the eastern cliff access, enter the lower compound, neutralize defenses, extract hostages. It looked clean. On paper. Torfan wasn't a moon. It was a maze of tunnels, bunkers, and fortified choke points. The Batarians had laid traps, rigged explosives, strung human shields across entryways. They knew the Alliance would hesitate. Airless, jagged, black. Subterranean tunnels carved by slave labor and desperation. They weren't just fighting in close quarters. They were walking into a trap. The enemy knew they were coming. Every corridor was mined, every motion-triggered charge tuned to Alliance IFF signatures. Every turn of rock and steel was designed to break them down, and it worked. They advanced an inch at a time, bleeding for every meter. Every step forward, someone paid in full. There was someone on this mission that Jane Shepard would almost call a friend. Almost. Not that she would ever say it out loud. Corporal Mark Vallon. Biotic. Calm. Methodical. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. But he was reliable. And he reminded her of someone long gone. Mark had been with her through recon, insertions, and extraction runs. He cracked jokes that weren't funny, made the others laugh anyway, and carried more weight than he ever let on. Mark, teasing. If this whole suicide tunnel rat gig doesn't work out, maybe you can teach zero-G yoga. Shepard, dry. The chance of you seeing me in a leotard is about as good as you getting more kills than me on this mission. Corporal. Mark. Hey, a man can dream, can't he? Shepard. Quiet smirk. Copy that, Corporal. She wanted to believe he'd make it. She already knew he wouldn't. 6 minutes later, everything went to hell. A false wall collapsed. A trap. 6 Marines gone. Crushed. The battalion surged up from beneath, clawing through vent shafts, pouring into kill zones. They had angles, lines of fire, suppression fields. 6 Marines were dead, 2 dismembered, 1 burned alive. And Kyle snapped. Kyle, over comms. Fall back. Echo point. No, wait. Sector 3. Go. Soldier. We're cut off. Sir, they're... Kyle. We're not ready. Shit. They didn't say they'd be this organized. What do I... Shepard saw the tremble in his hands, saw the panic take root. He was gone. A liability. She opened comms. In the void left by failure, Shepard rose. Without ceremony or permission. No speech, no fanfare. Just orders. Shepard. Calm. Major Kyle is out. Command falls to me. All squads push west. No stops. No debate. She didn't look at Mark. Didn't need to. She felt his loyalty. Like gravity. And she hated it. They fought like wraiths. Through crumbling shafts and tunnels that bled dust with every step. She gave the orders. They followed. Until they couldn't anymore. The moment came, suddenly. Mark, sharp, urgent. Shep! A battalion lunged out of the shadows. Too fast. Too close. A shotgun slammed into Mark's chest. Point blank. His biotic field flickered. And failed. Shepard turned, as the battalion leveled the barrel again. Too slow. She activated her Omni-Blade mid-turn, and drove it through the back of his skull. He crumpled like meat in armor. She kicked the body aside, knelt beside Mark. Tried everything. Medigel, pressure, commands to stay awake. Mark, weakly. It's okay. I'd still follow you. And then he was gone. She stared at him for 2 seconds, maybe 3, then stood. Something in her broke. This was the moment where Shepard became something else. Not just a soldier. Not just a leader. She became the weapon. Ruthless. Unstoppable. Unforgiving. She wasn't covering her squad. She moved forward. Alone. Like a reaper. In black and red. The battalions expected fear. She gave them rage. There were no prisoners. She didn't take any. Not battalion. Not alliance. Only the mission. And only her. She stopped giving orders. Stopped flanking. Stopped thinking. She walked into the tunnels with a loaded rifle, 2 grenades, and blood in her mouth. Didn't shout. Didn't scream. Didn't hesitate. She just moved. Straight down the middle. She didn't take cover. She didn't run. And it broke them. The battalions were trained for fear, not fury. They were ready for tactics, not a storm with green eyes. They opened fire, and she walked through it, armor scorched, blood already drying on her faceplate. She cleared a control room with a single grenade, then slit the throat of the one who tried to crawl away. She kicked open doors, dropped targets before they spoke. She killed fast. She killed quiet. She killed like it was all she had left. Some Batarians threw down their weapons, dropped to their knees. She didn't blink. 2 rounds. Chest. Head. Next. One begged. She didn't even stop walking. They say one slaver tried to barricade himself in a supply room. She tore the door open with a power wrench and burned him alive with a plasma coil. By the time she reached the final chamber, they didn't even fight. They ran. Didn't matter. They didn't get far. No one saw what happened in those tunnels. Not really. At some point, the 2 surviving Marines fell behind. They stopped following her. Too afraid. Too ashamed. They waited. The gunfire eventually stopped. The screaming went quiet. Then, boots on metal. Slow. Measured. Steady. She stepped out of the smoke. Blood-soaked, eyes forward. Didn't acknowledge them. Didn't need to. She just kept walking. The 2 Marines looked at each other, then fell in line. As they made their way out, one of them spotted Major Kyle. Still trembling, mumbling nonsense, barely able to stand. He didn't ask. He just slung Kyle's arm over his shoulder and carried him out. They emerged into the thin, artificial twilight of the landing zone. Helmet visors cracked, armor blackened. 4 out of 27. Shepard activated her comm. Shepard, flat. Lieutenant Shepard, objective complete, site secured. There was silence. Then, command, over radio, confused. Say again, who is this? Repeat your last. Shepard, Lieutenant Shepard, we're done here. There was a pause of silence. Static. Then, command, over radio. Copy that, Lieutenant. A shuttle is en route. ETA 4 minutes. The drop shuttle arrived. They climbed aboard. No one spoke. She sat in the rear, back straight, expression blank, looking ahead, not back, never back. The shuttle dropped them at the nearest medical frigate. No words, just the weight of boots on steel. Shepard followed the Marines to a debriefing room, dimly lit, sterile, cold. The walls were bare. A single tactical map flickered in the background. Debriefer, cold. Lieutenant, reports state you took command without authorization. You refused surrender. Used excessive force. 3/4 of your unit KIA. Major Kyle was recovered alive. Your report doesn't mention his status. Shepard measured. He was injured. Shock. Possibly trauma. Debriefer. Injured how? Physically? Psychologically? Shepard. He froze. Mid-operation. Lost comms discipline. Gave conflicting orders. I made the call to assume command. Debriefer, leaning forward. You're saying the commanding officer panicked? Shepard. Pauses, then answers evenly. I'm saying the situation required someone to act. I did. Debriefer. Did you consult anyone before assuming command? Shepard. No time. People were dying. I made a battlefield decision. Debriefer. Do you believe Major Kyle was unfit for leadership? Shepard. Tense. Jaw set. No. I believe the mission broke him. It could have broken anyone. Debriefer. Quiet. Pressing. You didn't mention this in your initial statement. Shepard. Because I wasn't interested in writing anyone's obituary. We completed the objective. That's what matters. Debriefer, softly. You think protecting his reputation serves the Alliance? Shepard, sharper now. I think Kyle earned his rank, and I think he's going to live with what happened on Torfan for the rest of his life. That's punishment enough. Shepard, flat detached. Sir, with respect, we completed the objective. Debriefer. But at what cost, soldier? Shepard, cold. The cost of victory, sir. A long pause. The debriefer closes the file slowly. Debriefer. Dismissed, Lieutenant. Shepard, calmly. Yes, sir. The report made it to Anderson. The file hit his desk hours later. He read every word, then closed the datapad with quiet finality. He leaned back in his chair, eyes drifting to the window beside him. The Rio de Janeiro skyline stretching below, sunlight glinting off the towers of the Interplanetary Combatives Academy, where new recruits drilled under watchful instructors. For a moment, he wondered if pulling her off the street all those years ago had been the right call. The next thought came faster, stronger, clearer. Yes. Chapter 7. The Call. The weeks after Torfan passed in a haze. Commendations were filed. Transfers were processed. Medals offered. Some accepted. Others ignored. Jane Shepard didn't attend the ceremony. She was offered a desk, a quiet reassignment, somewhere peaceful, somewhere far from the front. She declined. Instead, she went to a firing range, put 3,000 rounds through a beat-up assault rifle, and walked out without saying a word. She told herself it was just another mission, another name on the list, another op where people died and she didn't. But this one felt different, because some of them had followed her willingly, and not all of them came back. She began running alone. No comms, no escort, just her boots and the weight in her chest. Every night, she checked her armor. Still stained from Torfan. She didn't care. She didn't want it washed away. Then one morning, a message came through. No sender listed, just coordinates, a time, 2 words, meet alone. She boarded the shuttle without question. Didn't ask where. Didn't care. The stars outside blurred like ghosts. She sat still, watching the void like it might blink first. The shuttle touched down at Arcturus Station, the heart of the Systems Alliance Navy, where decisions weren't made in war rooms, but behind closed doors, by people who understood what the future really cost. The airlock hissed, doors opened. She walked down the corridor and found him already waiting, back turned, hands clasped behind his back, staring at a slow-rotating hologram. Captain David Anderson, without turning. Wasn't sure you'd come. Shepard, flat. Honestly, I don't think I ever left, Captain. Anderson smirks faintly. They wanted to sideline you, Shepard. They wanted you reassigned, quietly. Somewhere your name wouldn't make other soldiers nervous. Shepard. Yeah, well, I guess they can get in line. Are they scared of me? Anderson. No. They're scared of what they don't understand. He finally turned to face her, looked at what Torfan had carved from the fire. Anderson, quietly. "But I think I understand." He stepped aside, and there it was, floating in front of her in perfect holoform, sleek, sharp, and quiet. It didn't look like an Alliance ship. It looked like a warning. "Anderson. She's a prototype, stealth-class frigate, quietest ship in the fleet, fastest too. I need someone who can take her into fire and bring her back breathing." Shepard, arms crossed. "You want me to babysit a ship?" Anderson, low, serious. "I want you to lead. This isn't just another ship. It's a new kind of war. And I need someone who's already been through one." He paused. "Anderson, when she's on the ground, you're in charge. For now, she's mine. But they'll be watching. Not me. You." Shepard, quiet, steady. "Let them." Then they walked, down a corridor, toward the observation deck, toward the silhouette in dry dock. Before it was the Normandy, it was just another classified vessel. A stealth frigate, experimental, black as vacuum. No registry, no name, just a project number. Now it floated in dock, sleek, predatory, silent, and two figures stood watching her from the observation deck. Anderson and Shepard, shoulder to shoulder, in a high-clearance Alliance dock. Anderson, low. There she is, the future. Shepard, arms crossed, quiet. Doesn't look like much yet. Anderson, half smiling. She will, just needs a name. Shepard studies the ship, the long lines, the sharp silhouette, the feeling. Shepard, soft, slow. "We'd better give her one then." Shepard and Anderson stood staring for what seemed an age. Then, Shepard, "She's the Normandy." Anderson, glancing at her. "Why Normandy?" Shepard, quiet, thoughtful. "Because it wasn't just a landing. It was a sacrifice. Thousands going in, knowing they might not come back. They weren't there for glory. They were there to break the line, no matter the cost." She looks back at the ship. Shepard, firmer now. "This won't be any different. If we're lucky, we survive. If not, at least we go in knowing what we signed up for." Anderson nods. "Normandy it is." And with that, the name stuck. Not just to her hull, but to history. Chapter 8. Primed for action. Before the drop to Eden Prime. Before the mission began. There was one final conversation. Not recorded. Not archived, but it changed everything. In a secure chamber aboard Arcturus Station, 3 men met in secret. No staff, no aides, only clearance, silence, and tension. Ambassador Donald Udina stood stiff near the data display. Admiral Stephen Hackett leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Captain David Anderson stood dead center, calm but insistent. Udina, tense. What about Shepard? She was born on Earth, raised in the streets of Vancouver. No family, no ties. Anderson, firm. She knows how hard life can get. She fought through it. No excuses, no shortcuts. Hackett, you've read the Torfan report. She went in with 27, walked out with 3. Not because she gave up, because she finished the job. Udina, cold. She's reckless. She executes, she improvises. She leaves bodies and questions behind. That's not what a Spectre is. Anderson. No, that's exactly what a Spectre needs to be. When things go sideways and no one else gets up, Shepard does. Udina. Is that really the kind of person we want protecting the galaxy? Anderson. Calm, without pause. That's the only kind of person who can protect it. Silence. Then Udina straightens. I'll make the call. Chapter 9. The Quiet Before. It was always fire. That's how the dream started. How it always started. Smoke curling like fingers through the halls. Screams bouncing off cracked stone. The taste of ash in her mouth. She moved through it. Small, helpless, lungs burning. And then she saw him. Mark, arms outstretched, eyes wide, and flame swallowing him whole. Shepard woke up, choking on air. Sweat cold on her skin. Sheets twisted around her legs. She sat upright on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Hands clenched, breathing steadying. Just a dream. Except it wasn't. Not really. She stood, still in silence. Her cabin aboard the Normandy was small. Spartan. Just the way she liked it. A single photo frame faced down on the table. She never picked it up. She didn't need to. She remembered every face that was once in it. She pulled on her civvies, black tactical pants, fitted undershirt, and then reached for her N7 hoodie. Old, frayed around the edges, still smelled faintly of gun oil and bleach. She zipped it up, tight, close to the collar. Then she walked to the mirror. Green eyes, red hair, a scar over her left eye, another on her cheek, one more across her lip, faded but jagged, and beneath it all, the expression of someone waiting for fate to finish what it started. She stared for a long moment, then quietly whispered, not bitter, just curious. Shepard, soft. How many more will it take? How many more scars before I finally don't get up again? She let the silence answer. It always did. Somewhere above, the ship vibrated gently. The pulse of the mass relay ahead. The hum of readiness. She knew what day it was. The mission on Eden Prime was scheduled within hours. Standard recon, they'd said. Routine. She never believed in routine. And then, there was him. Nellis Kryek, Turian, Spectre. Regal in posture, refined in movement. Every gesture a precise, disciplined choice. A walking symbol of everything the Council wanted humans to admire and never imitate. Shepard had watched him during the briefing. The quiet judgment, the unreadable eyes. She didn't trust him, but she couldn't stop thinking about him. Not in admiration, in curiosity. What had he seen? What had he survived? Would he drag her into another war zone? Would he offer her a chance to strike back at the Batarians again? The ones she still saw in her dreams. The ones she never stopped hating. Or maybe, just maybe, would he be the one who gave her the death she was too proud to seek herself? A warrior's death. Clean, clear, earned. She didn't say it aloud. Never would. But in the quiet, beneath the hum of the ship and the weight of the past, she hoped. She keyed the door. The corridor opened. Cool, brushed steel and red floor lighting guiding her forward. She passed Presley, who offered a stiff nod. She didn't return it. She moved past the CIC, up the small incline to the bridge. And there they were. Caden Alenko, leaning over the ops console, sharp, reliable, still too clean, and Joker, turning in his seat, hands dancing over the controls like an extension of his mind. They looked back as she stepped beside them, said nothing, didn't need to. In that moment, as the Normandy coasted toward Eden Prime, Commander Shepard stood not as a survivor, or a ghost, or a weapon. She stood as something else. The beginning of a storm no one saw coming. Epilogue. The line in the sand. She was never meant to be the hero. Not the chosen one. Not the golden child. Just a girl in the fire. A soldier who kept getting back up. A woman who learned too early that the universe doesn't care who lives, only who refuses to die. She wasn't perfect. She wasn't kind. But when the sky cracked open and the stars fell like ash, she stood. She stood in the ashes of Vancouver, the ruins of Elysium, the blood-soaked tunnels of Torfan. She stood on the deck of the Normandy, facing warlords, specters, councils, collectors, and gods. And when the Reapers came, with their hollow voices and unbreakable logic, Shepard gave them an answer they had never heard before. No. Others wanted peace. The Council wanted strategy. The Protheans wanted revenge. But Shepard? She wanted something simpler. A future. Even if it cost her everything. Some called her a symbol. Others, a soldier. Some whispered names she never earned. Others remembered the blood, the scars, the fire. But in the end, they all agreed on one thing. Shepard drew a line, and said this far, no further. Javik was the last of a dying empire, forged to be vengeance. But Jane Shepard was something else. She was never created. She was born, broken, beaten, hardened. And she chose her fate every step of the way. She wasn't hope. She wasn't wrath. She wasn't destiny. She was defiance. This concludes Mass Effect. Defiance, an original fan fiction audiobook written by A.S.R. Hawas, produced by NerdWannaBeProductions, inspired by the universe created by BioWare. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, consider sharing it with fellow fans. And remember, every legend starts somewhere. Some start with glory. Some start in fire. Not bad, Shepard. Still wouldn't last 10 minutes on Tachanka, though. Who names their ship after a suicidal beach landing?